what connecting the dots is, right? Just so much synergy between everybody. And if we just find where the dots are, just connect them, So
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I think specifically and uniquely, there are a lot of dots between what we're all doing. I think that there's some overlap. I think there's also some amplification that can happen, but like between what Pablo's doing with the relationship flywheel, between what Kirsten's doing in a couple different regards, but like kind of just what she's doing, I think that's manifesting as Salubrity right now. But Lisa, what you're doing with Hub and beyond, and kind of, I'm working with individuals on LinkedIn, but what I'm doing more genuinely or generally on LinkedIn, there's so many overlaps, and I think everybody on this call is going to resonate with what we're all doing. So
yeah, I was just saying that I feel like my life is manifesting right now. This is a manifestation, actually, how we're coming together. So, and it's amazing, right? When we just, go with the flow, I think that's why I think this year is about abundance and how do we accelerate abundance together. So.
It's my year, man. It's the year of the tiger, so I'm super psyched.
Oh, the eye of the tiger.
Wrong element, but right.
I'm going to start admitting people in. I see some people in the waiting room already, so we get the early birds in here. So,
Kirsten,
oh wow! Hey, Hawk! Wow, Hawk is coming all the way from Sweden. And Lauren, great to see you, Lauren. Hey, Robert. Great to see you. And Elise, feel free to turn on your camera. You guys are early birds. Welcome. So meet our speakers, Corry,
Thank you.
Kirsten.
Hello.
Hey guys.
Hey, welcome everybody.
Hi, great to meet you. And we have Tina here. Wow, we have a lot of amazing people here in the room. So, I would love to know where everyone's joining from. I'm calling from San Francisco, so feel free to drop in the chat or unmute if you want to share where you're calling from. We'd love to hear from you.
Well, and Pablo's been trying to ask Kirsten for like the last 10 minutes.
Oh, did you hear that? You didn't hear
I got it. I just looked her up on LinkedIn, New York. I got it.
Oh, yeah, I'm in Manhattan, right by the park, uptown. So.
Love it.
Very
cool.
New Yorker in the house, right? So Elise is coming from South Bend, Indiana. Hey, Tina, great to see you. Hey, Mariah and Byron, great to see you. So here's a little networking tip for everybody. So there's 3 little dots on the upper right-hand corner of your Zoom screen. I recommend adding your passion project so that we activate networking, right? Today is about accelerating networking. So we want you to connect before, during, and after, right? So like this, the way we did here, we put our passion projects. And I was just saying that it's good to know where we're calling from. So I'm Lisa, I'm calling from San Francisco, and we have Robert from California, SoCal, and Elise from South Bend, Lauren from Seattle. Hawk, do you want to share where you're calling from?
Yeah, I come from Norway, but right now I'm in Sweden.
It's so amazing to have you here, Hawk. Hawk and instantly and I became friends the first time we met.
Yeah, that was a good talk.
So, and Tina, remind me where you're calling from?
Just outside of San Francisco, Emeryville.
That's right. We were talking about the cafe, the brunch cafe. That's right. I remember now. And Mariah and Byron, where are you calling from?
We're in the balmy Midwest.
Yeah.
Where Corry really misses being here. I know that. We're in Iowa, 4 hours from Chicago. And
Yeah.
it's 0.
It's 0 Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
Oh
So
my gosh. Oh yeah, remember you showed the snow, the picture of the snow.
Yeah, isn't it lovely?
you miss it, don't you, Corry?
So it's so great. It's just snowed like this much again here in Sweden. So my dog was like ecstatic. Yay! Just running around.
Yeah.
Oh, we have Susan Davis with us. Oh my gosh, Susan's joining from Ecuador. Oh my gosh,
Oh,
great
wow.
to have you here, Susan. Susan is the godmother of social investing. She is the founder of Kinship Earth. Oh my gosh, so great to have you here. Wow, and I see joining in. Barbara, great to see you. And Rick, hey Rick. Great to see you. So for those of you that I didn't catch the first part, one of the things I was saying is that my name is Lisa Ma. We're here to have a Stronger Together X Connect the Dots, but we're also here to have an acceleration networking session. So some networking tips for you is to click on the 3 little dots on your Zoom and add your passion project. So that way people remember who you are and can stay connected with you as we've done here. And one of the things that I would love to, we were just sharing where we're calling from. So Rick, where are you calling from? And Barbara,
the middle of a cornfield in Iowa is where I'm at right now.
Oh yeah, Mariah and Byron, you guys are right there next to each other then. Here are the dots, see, we're connecting the dots already. And Barbara, you told me before, but you want to share with the group where you're calling from? Oh, feel free to unmute.
I should know better about unmuting because I use this all the time for class. Anyway, my name's Barbara Burgess Wilkerson. I am from Charlotte, North Carolina. I teach at Winthrop University, and I'm looking forward to using this as a tool both for class and maybe for professional reasons once I retire next year. So.
Oh, well, wonderful to have you. And Stephen is here and Dr. Pauline as well. And TK, feel free to turn on your camera if you want to activate networking. We would love to see you. So before we get going, I would love to talk a little bit more about just networking so that we say before we go into the main event. I wanted to introduce you. Give me 1 second. Let me just set this up so that we can see everybody. So I'm just going to share my screen for a second. Okay, here we go. So you may have seen that when you joined the event that you are all connected already. So the moment that you decided to show up today, you are all connected already. So you can find each other in the attendees tab on Hub here. You can message one another. And I sent out some networking tips is that I recommend that you guys post an introduction with your Zoom link so that you stay connected after this, so that focus this time on making authentic one-on-one conversations, right? Connections and have conversations. But what you can do is you can post your information here, like all our speakers are here, so you can connect with all our speakers after, connect on LinkedIn, and you can message one another, right? So you are also welcome to go ahead and do a post, right? So this is what Hub is, and I'm using Hub as a way to keep the connection going. So that's what Hub is about. So you don't have to worry about like not being connected. You're connected already. So for those of you that I've not gotten a chance to meet, my name is Lisa Ma. I'm the creator of StrongerTogetherX. I'm also the Chief Growth Officer at Hub, and that's why I'm using the Hub platform, because I believe in the platform. It's a referral community events platform. I would love to introduce my co-host, Corry Warfield. Corry is the Chief Connection Officer at Corry Connects, and he's also a growth coach, a tech founder, and also a LinkedIn influencer with 390,000 influencers now, I think, as of today. And he's amazing, you will see. And also we have Kirsten Franklin here. Kirsten is a serial entrepreneur. She's a co-founder of MyFitPod and Celebrity, and she's also an author and a life coach. And we have Pablo. He's a co-founder of B2B Community Builder. He's the chief executive connector of Connect with Pablo, and also he's a category designer. And so as you can see here, right, we have a lot of our guests have done a lot of things to accelerate themselves. So today we're going to learn from Corry how he grew his LinkedIn follower base, and we want to learn from Kirsten how does she balance from being a super mom, super woman, super entrepreneur, and also Pablo, we want to know how you made $46 million with your podcast last year. So anyway, that's just some of the questions. Anyway, so if you want to see everybody, you can put it on gallery. So anyway, so let's kickstart. So I would love to have Corry, my co-host here, introduce who you are. You want to share with us who you are, Corry, and who are you, and what's your superpower, Corry?
Sure, well, thank you. My name's Corry Warfield, and I was told the first time I ever met Lisa, I guess probably over a year ago now, that I was a super connector, and it just resonated with me. I was like, wait, I really am. That is what I do. And I had started a company called Corry Connects not too far before that. We're kind of a metaverse and automating my coaching where I help people grow like I have. And so connecting is my superpower. And I like to think that my superpower also includes listening, purely accidentally, because I was a waiter for 20 years. So when I first was starting my first technology company, which was a B2B SaaS company about 6 years ago, I was the CEO, and I raised, some money for the company, about 800K, and I scaled the thing and got it to market and all of that. But one of the many hats I was supposed to wear was I was supposed to sell the thing, right? And I realized I was the world's worst salesperson at the time, because 20 years working in restaurants, everyone that I dealt with was in my section or at my bar. So they had no choice. They had to buy from me. They were hungry, right? They knew what I was selling. So I didn't have to convince anybody that food or drinks was good for them or that they should come into my establishment. So there was literally no sales cycle. And I think one of the things that I've been somewhat fortunate with and had some great mentors is over these last couple of years, I've now started and scaled a few companies and raised a decent amount of money for some of them. But I've kind of learned the sales cycle now outside of my name's Corry. What do you want for dinner tonight? So yeah, I'm just happy to be here and to meet everybody.
Well, great to have you here, Corry. And how we kicked off this this series is that Corry and I love meeting to chat, to connect the dots. And every time we chat, right, it goes exponential. So now we're just bringing more super connectors to the round table to connect the dots. So this is exciting. Kirsten, would love to know who you are and your superpower gifts.
Yeah, so hi, I'm Kirsten Franklin. I am in Manhattan, New York. I am a recovering attorney turned entrepreneur and life and business coach. I play an advisory role to many startups, from memore.io that you will be hearing a lot about coming out in March, especially if you're all over Reddit, to some of the companies that I actually started during COVID, such as Salubrity, MyFitPod, and several others. I sit as the president of the board of the Artest Foundation. So if anybody here watches sports and knows who Meta World Peace is, this is his family foundation that I run. But yeah, I mean, my passion is kind of like these guys here on the panel. It's, one of my superpowers is connecting. It's what I do naturally. In fact, I made a multi-million-dollar business off it in, Career Strategist, which is a law partner recruiting platform. So if you know anything about law and partnership, all it is a bunch of, a different version of M&A and a lot of fun in connecting that way. But that was what was the entree for me into coaching other, high-level individuals, high-level CEOs, hedge fund managers, professional athletes. And that just was sort of derived from my passion. Self-help, psychology, all the things that I picked up from, being a practicing attorney. It all just sort of culminated, and over the past, 11 years, I've been able to do really what I love. And the key to that is actually networking. There isn't a single company that I've built or helped build that had not done anything with regard to my network, someone else's network, our networking. Your network is probably the number one thing that will get you anything and everything you want in the snap of your fingers. So it's super important.
Mm-hmm. Very well said. I mean, really, like, that's why we're calling this acceleration networking. When you connect with people that are in your trusted circle, you find who you seek very quickly, right? And this is how you accelerate one another. So what's interesting, I'm starting to connect the dots here, right? Like what Corry and Kirsten said is that, everyone has multiple passion projects, right? In a way, you're connecting the dots between the passion projects that you're doing. So let's add to the dot, right? Pablo, can you share who you are and what's your superpower?
Yes, thank you, Lisa. My name is Pablo Gonzalez. I live in Jacksonville, Florida. I got a company called Be The Stage, where we are championing this category of relationship-driven growth, right? We just very much believe that every business is a relationship business. And right now we're at the point in time when the combination of what we know about social sciences, psychology, and marketing and influence and behavioral economics and whatever, combined with processes and methodologies, combined with technology, can truly scale businesses via relationships, right? Like it basically the intersection of content creation, distribution, and psychology. It's all there for the taking, right? And the barriers of entry are down. So we believe that community creation is the key to business development these days, right? Like it's either going to be digital giants or you're going to have a community, and that is the only moat that you're going to be able to have in a world of free information. My superpower is I genuinely fall in love with everybody that I meet. Like my superpower is that I'm able to see something special in everybody that I encounter, and I'm like a really good communicator. So it kind of makes me a huge hype man. And that people like that. People love to be promoted, and it comes very natural to me just because it's in my core. Secret to accelerating success. I learned really early on, actually not really early on. What am I talking about? I learned like 7 years ago, and I'm 41 right now, that human beings are happiest when they're in service. And if you can figure out, kind of like what that thing that you love to do that you're really, really good at, and figure out a way to serve others with it as opposed to serving yourself with it, and then figure out a way to monetize it in a genuine way and scale around it, then it's the key to success, right? So again, you're going to see these themes in the fact that, like, my company's called Be the Stage. I believe in being the stage, not the star of the stage, right? Because I believe in being a kingmaker over trying to be king, because then everybody that's trying to get there wants to work with you as opposed to competing with other people. And my intention and passion project for 2022 is to scale this company, right? We recently launched a cohort course teaching our methodology so that we can make this community creation as business development a very tangible thing for people, because our service is $100,000 a year service, and we work with like $50 to $100 million companies. And I talk to a lot of people, and very few people can afford that. So we're trying to make that as easy as possible to get in and learn the stuff and do it yourself. And we expect that out of that, some people will also end up being our clients too. But at the end of the day, it's championing this idea that the person across the table from you is a value to you, not a threat. And the more different they are than you, the more you can learn from them and the more valuable they are. And I think very clearly, as the world densifies, if we don't learn that, we're headed for trouble.
Well said. I mean, at the end of the day, it really is about being of service to others, and like you said, community, right? How do you build community? When you have a community, you don't even have to think about people as, customers per se, right? They're like your friends, right? Or just your network, right? That people that they want to learn from you, because it's about circle of trust. So Corry, what about you? Like, what is your intention, given we're in the new year, what is your intention for 2022? And, and what's your secret to accelerating abundance and success? Because I see what you're doing and growing, exponentially.
Yeah, I think for me, the intention this year is really to take what I've learned how to monetize in the ways that I've found, to Pablo's point and Kirsten's as well, how to help people and make a living doing it. I think taking that to the next levels, which for me, I mean, I can do, only so much as one person that's not automating things. But then when I look at things like blockchain, and different ways to make evergreen, service offerings that can be leveraged by more people, and to Pablo's point, people that can't inherently afford what it is that I offer because it's a higher price point as well. So I think just, how do we leverage things like Web3, which I'm all about, and data privacy, which one of my companies is, we believe we've solved that using blockchain. How can we get not only the messages out, but how can we get like the actual benefits out and the why behind the why? Like, why in my startups and in my startup world, why do we care so much to work, sometimes 20 hours a week with no pay, or to get, millions of views from the right people around the world? Because at the end of the day, it can't only be about money, right? And it really is fun to see how technology is making so much easier. There's open source technology now. There's no code and low code technology. And so understanding kind of what all the new technologies are, how they work together symbiotically, and how I can use them to help more and more people. And then the kind of fun, weird byproduct is that a lot of money can be made when you're kind of at the bleeding edge of some of these technologies. So for me, the way that I accelerate is what I've been doing now for a couple of years on LinkedIn, and just, going more and more viral and getting millions of views, and, every week, and getting tens of thousands of followers every week on LinkedIn, and figuring out how to leverage that to really, further my initiatives, which at the end of the day, ultimately is, hoping to make my world and the world a better place.
Mhm. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. What about Kirsten? Like what is your intention and passion project for 2022 that you wanted to share?
Mine's not as wide as Corry. So one of my intentions is really getting my Salubrity team to pivot and understand UN SDG goals with regards to environment. So right now our model is to rent. So we don't have a lot of say. So we're doing some basic things like making sure we're recapturing the power from our spin cycle rooms and things of that nature, making sure that the things that get put in there are eco-friendly. But we already had the conversation about breaking ground and doing all stuff. And it was almost like I was stuck in an episode of The Simpsons. I had wide Maggie blinking eyes looking at me when I said, hey, we have to consider how we're making this cement. How are we doing this thing? How are we, and I'm sitting across from people my age in their 40s, and they're looking at me like, what the hell are you talking about? And I'm just like, dude, where have you been? Right? I mean, this is the conversation. And somebody had approached us about creating a custom like cycle shoe for us. And that was one of my first, questions, like, where's the green aspect of this? Who's making this? How is this being produced? Like, what are you doing? What, one of the biggest carbon killers, right? Like making of our sneakers here. So yeah, it's been getting a lot of people to see things that they really just didn't see before. And their mind is stuck on a price tag, not really understanding the impact. So that's one of my big goals, is to really make them feel it. They all have kids too. So I'm trying to leverage that to make them understand what this is all about, this planet and everything. So that's one thing. And really just, bringing, I think, that element into everything I do. As Corry knows, I'm working with memelord.io. And, I even ran it by them, like, what are the platforms are you using? How, like, if they're going off Ethereum, what does that look like for us, like in the sense of carbon emissions and doing all this stuff, right? And so my goal is to really genuinely bring in all of that to everything I'm doing this year, opening up some people's eyes and learning a lot from other people. So that's really kind of one of my big goals this year.
Yeah, making impact and learning from others is so important. So I do agree with you. Like when I think about my intention for 2022, my intention is creating StrongerTogetherX abundance and helping everyone accelerate it. And I was just thinking, like, how did we get up to this point? And I realized, like, all of us have journeys, right? So I know that personally in 2020, I went through an awakening where I started tuning in and just realizing aligning my passion and my purpose is how we can get into flow state. Pablo, how did you get to awaken to who you are to get to this point?
Man, just a series of things. I think the biggest moment for me was the passing of my brother. And my brother passed away, lost his battle to pancreatic cancer 7 years ago, almost exactly 7 years ago. And I looked around this church during his funeral, and there was 1,200 people. And since my teenage years, I grew up very Catholic, and since I was a teenager, from there on out, it was like this love-hate relationship with the church and the Catholic faith. And I looked around and I saw these 1,200 people, and I thought that these 1,200 people have made these last 2 years significantly more bearable, and they're making this terrible moment, significantly more bearable. And the value that they're bringing to us is immeasurable. And this is, no matter how I feel about this institution, I can never leave this community. And at that moment, it was like this lightning bolt that was just like, oh, this is the business model. The community is a business model. And I started, my reticular activator hit, and I started seeing it everywhere. I started realizing that if you buy a Harley Davidson, you can't get a Honda motorcycle a year later because you lose your friends, right? Like, so people have been doing this for a really, really long time. And that was, that combined with the experience that I had in creating nonprofit groups, young professional nonprofit groups for Miami, the 5 years prior, just kind of like all fed together in this idea that your network is your most valuable thing. The people that are the most connected are the people that are most of service. The way that you provide the most value is to create a community around someone. And if you can't, like if that's not what you're trying to do, what are we doing?
Right.
So like, that's it. That's in a nutshell. I don't need to speak more there.
Right. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Corey, what about you? What awakened you to your path, to find your path?
I think it was really just entrepreneurship. I think, there's a lot that goes into, especially if you haven't gone to school for it or come up in the ranks, like learning how to delegate and hire and raise capital and then deploy capital and get revenues to a certain point and, figure out a customer journey and a business model canvas. So I think all of that stuff. And I was, fortunate, at least to a degree, to have gotten into one of the top rated accelerators in the world. And then the only ever post accelerator by the Global Accelerator Network. They're the ones that started Techstars and things like that. So getting some of that exposure. And it's so funny because my mother lost her battle to pancreatic cancer right around the same time as Pablo's brother did. And that was definitely like the catalyst in more ways than one for me. But knowing that she wasn't able to see like this whole new part of my life was really a driver. And to kind of tune into that energy from the other side, but also just having to figure this out, kind of as they say, like building the plane on the way down. And just learning from my mistakes and then sharing those with other people, ahead of their learnings, because on the one hand, people need to learn certain things for themselves. On the other hand, I'm big on like the Akashic record, collective consciousness, all these things. If I can help people steer clear of some of the pitfalls that I had starting my first few companies, there's at least good karma and probably money to be made there as well. So I think starting the company was the big one. I think also for me, and it's somewhat cliche for some people and maybe profound for some others, but just starting meditation, like really tuning into like, oh, this is why people meditate and have for millennia, right? Like really tuning into like being here now and breath control and just, being an observer of reality and a co-creator of reality. And, I'd read the book, The Secret, and watched the movie. And, now I'm friends with some of the people that helped make the movie and are in the movie. And just like, I think you talk a lot also, Lisa, about manifestation, like realizing that this life that I'd kind of been almost accidentally preparing myself for my entire adulthood is now, this life where I'm meeting some of the people that I looked up to for years, and my companies, are reaching tens of thousands and more than that people that they can benefit from, things that truly started as an idea. So yeah, I think really just entrepreneurship, and then there's probably a lot that went into that.
Yeah, I do believe that, like, in the darkness, right, that it awakened us to the light. And I think when something shocking happens on our journey, right, it helps us to remember. And if you think about the word awakening, literally, right, is that what that means? And when we tune in, I think that's how we wake up. Because personally speaking, I do feel like we're just on this journey, like whatever passion project we take on is a learning experience, and it's through the journey, right, that we awaken to who we are. And when we remember who we are, right, then we're here to be of service, and then we are going to change the world and change the world together. And so it's important to learn the lessons, I think, from the adversities that we face in our life. And like you said, Corey, tuning in is the way to really listen to your heart, right, and your soul and your spirit. So yeah, so thank you. Kirsten, what about you? Like, what was the awakening moment for you to help you realize what you mentioned? You started as a lawyer, right? I know as a consultant, like you such a busy life.
I had an odd journey, Mama. So the year I graduated law school, working on Wall Street, 2001, within the first month of starting my first job out of law school, September 11th happens, and windows blow out of my office. Dust is everywhere. Massacre, right? And then I moved out to Miami Beach because I don't want to be on Wall Street anymore. So I started practicing in Miami. Very much like me to just pick up no job, no nothing, and not really caring. So when Corey talks about building it on the way down, that just innately has been me all my life. I don't know why, but I thank God for it. And it's really funny because my mother just recently said to me, she doesn't say much, but she says to me the other day, she goes, you know, one of the things I really admire about you is you just do whatever the hell you want whenever you want to, and somehow it just works out for you, and everything's so great. And I'm just like, yeah, that's right, you know. And it's been a really long journey. I mean, I've always been into psychology, so I think that was really the foundation of everything I've experienced, because I did look at it from a certain standpoint, trying to understand why people felt the way they did. How did they see this thing that I saw? You know, even during September 11th, you know, all these things are happening, and I have this ability to really pull back and just try and see from everyone's perspective, not even really being able to stand in their shoes, because you really can't, right? You can imagineer it, you can kind of hypothesize about it, but you can't really live it, right? But for me, I think the biggest transition was, so I finally quit being a lawyer, opened up a title company. It's South Florida, hand over fist, millions and millions. I think I am the coolest, smartest business owner ever. I'm in my 20s. Market crashes, right? I find out I'm pregnant. I'm going to be a single parent, give birth to my daughter, get handed my ass financially, and I am homeless with my child for the first 6 months of her life. And I think all of that, you know, and I'm depressed and I'm suicidal and I'm, you know, suicidal ideation, right? And so all of this stuff, it really did take me about a good 18 months to pull myself out of it, really see from a different perspective. And I thank God every day that happened, because there are things I would never know. Coming from my background, I would not know what it was like to be homeless, right? The things that people go through. And I wasn't even like for real homeless. You know, I have lots of friends, big houses to go to, sleeping on couches, extra bedrooms, right? You know, people's guest houses, you know, it's a version of it. But, you know, I can't imagine. And then what I really learned was, you know, as a single parent, you know, I have tons of friends and family, but they all did stuff. So if I wanted to go out on a job interview, take a break, no one was there. It was me and an infant in a moment of struggle. And so for me, I'm really passionate about helping any single parent, especially with young children, to build that business, get their shit together, build that network, really understand what that looks like, because that was a lifesaver, you know. Here I am in Manhattan, you know, building this company with a 3-year-old. But I also have my values. So I took that 3-year-old on meetings with multi-million-dollar makers. And if you had a problem with it, we didn't need to work together. Yeah, I was losing probably $250,000 by saying that, right? But I also realized with that energy, most of them didn't have a problem. Most of them said nothing. Most of them were happy to meet my child and have this conversation sort of around her. And that's also been a blessing. Like there was a time when I came down from a house that we were taking over for a mastermind, and one of my business partners and I were driving back to New York, and we're like, oh, you know, there's got to be something more we do. Backseat, my then 7-year-old, now 13, chimes, goes, you know, when is everybody leaving? And I'm like, well, we're leaving Sunday. Well, what are you guys doing? I was like, well, we're having breakfast, we'll hang out and we'll leave. She goes, what if you had them come and they could pay for your expertise? Because if all the speakers and the experts are there, it could be like a private meeting. I'm like, dude, what just happened here? So I'm like, it's sinking in. She's 7 years old. Like, where did this come from? Right. So, you know, I'm big in believing in exposure. I'm big in, you know, not talking down. You're not babying anything down. My daughter read at the college level by the time she was in the 3rd grade, but that's because she was surrounded by a bunch of cerebral dork lawyers that read and all talked legalese around her. And she had to understand, and we didn't baby any of our kids, right? And they all excel at this level, at least, you know, academically. I don't know how they could do in the real world, but, you know, all because of what we did. And so, you know, my awakening was really that journey of thinking I was God's gift to like business, you know, thinking I really thought I was so cool. When you're in your 20s and you're like, yeah, I want that Beamer that just came out. And you're just like, sure, all cash. You think you're so cool, right? But then it got wiped away real fast. You know, and I learned though, but that's really awesome because, you know, coming out of this, Corry mentions people from The Secret, and I got to work with a lot of them as my mentors, as my advisors when I built Career Strategist, that you know, law partner recruiting company. And that's when I really learned that what I love to do is build things. Like, that's just it. Like, I don't care what it is. And I literally build furniture. So like, I'm one of these weirdos, like I build things with my hands. I build companies. I love figuring things out. Not afraid to fail. Just learned a lesson today, guys. Hired an electrician. We got a quote to do this build out for Salubrity in Pennington, $21,000. I was like, that's some BS. And so called somebody else, got another quote, $4,300. I'm like, yes, okay. Never take the one guy you've worked with for 10 years and take his number for it. Like, lesson learned.
Well, that's why I call you the superwoman, right? You are truly a superwoman. And I do think, right, it's about standing in your power, know, and having belief, right? It's really important. And like, if I think about, like, I remember when I first saw the movie The Secret, like, I understood the concept, but until I fully internalize it and believe it, now I truly understand The Secret. And I think we all can tap into The Secret and manifest when we tune in. And it's so amazing to hear everyone here really learn The Secret in manifesting your best life. So let's go to the next question. Actually, I think a lot of people want to know about like the secrets, more about the secrets to success. But Pablo, can you share a little bit more about how you generated for
Pablo
podcast? Inquiring minds want to know.
Yeah. It's been a really interesting journey, right? When I first really committed to all of this, I was in the construction world, right? Like I had done all these nonprofit stuff in Miami. I was the director of sustainability for a hospital developer and a university park developer. And I landed on I had my consulting company that was Green Building Consulting, got acquired, went in-house, thought I made it. And then I realized real quickly 2 years in that I got kind of like stuck in a hole of just like, yeah, here you go, green guy, go like make us look good at certain presentations, but your career is over right here. And at a time when I was like really just feeling like I was at a dead end of my career, I'm getting named top 20 under 40 in Brickle magazine. And I'm just like, it didn't make sense. And at one point, my CEO got invited to speak on this panel about smart cities. And he decided he didn't want to go. So they sent me at the last minute in front of the Economic Development Agency of Miami. I get there and I share the stage in front of like maybe 50 people with like the head of Latin America for Cisco Systems and the head of the Smart Cities Initiative for the World Bank and me, who thinks is a loser. And when I come off the stage, there was a line 7 people deep waiting to talk to me. And that's when this idea that the power of a stage is this like validation it gives to the audience that sees you, because whatever you're saying there, they attribute a certain value to it. And if I can be guilty by association with people on a certain stage, that magnifies that value. And I've been kind of parlaying that trick into, I got involved with a startup up here in Jacksonville. I started doing events where I'd like pull the developer on stage with a politician that I knew that about something they cared about in front of my young professionals. And we're backdooring a $45 million construction project all of a sudden. And then I didn't shut up about this idea of like value aggregated business development, got to the startup, jumped into a burning ship and had to rearrange my whole plan. And then like 2018, I started hosting Zoom events where I was interviewing. We brought together our biggest customers to get to know each other and give value to this community. And early 2019, I saved this company in 2018. And then decided I didn't really want to be a partner there anymore. So early 2019, I started from zero. I took this like 90-day purposeful pause and I booked 5 conferences and just made literally 450 new friends. Like I still have the Excel sheet of all the people that I met. And it was all this like iteration over 90 days of like what I want to do. That's why I came up with this community creation as a future of business development. And then my first client, like 3 months later was this guy that's like a world-class content strategist. And we built out this community on the back end of like a book funnel. And I started realizing that the community play was really a content and a marketing play and like a networking play. And you can do all these different things if instead of thinking about your community in one thing and thinking about your content in another thing, if you merge those things and you create this like stage within the middle of your client success ecosystem and start leveraging these people that you want to be guilty by association with that can provide value to your clientele, and you can drive this community piece. So end of 2019, I got my first, big opportunity to do this. And this is the case study that I refer to all the time because it was our first client. There's this turnkey rental income property investing company here in Jacksonville, Florida. That awesome company, right? They're like 4 partners that have grown this amazing machine that employs almost 90 people now, win Best Place to Work awards. They've been on the front page of the Wall Street Journal a couple of times. but their online client acquisition channel had gone stale for like 4 years. And they're just like, man, if people just understood what we do, right? Like if people got to know our team, if we could spend more time with the people that we serve, then we think we can grow this thing. So we designed this relationship flywheel, right? It's the first version of this thing where we just figured that if we can really understand what the clientele, what they're trying to achieve, right? Like what they're trying to do and what they need to know in order to do business with you and succeed in life, which for these folks was real estate education, asset class education, education about Jacksonville, understanding the team and the people that do it and how they do it, and then who else is doing this, and create this stage, right? Like create this like weekly place where you appear and you get to build a relationship one-to-one with a key strategic relationship, either a super consumer type or somebody that's had great success, or somebody that can open up a lot of doors and be talking about these different things that we needed to educate the marketplace on, and invite the clientele and any prospects to it to show up and build the relationships one to few, right? Like while we're building one-to-one, we're building one to few, and we're creating that sense of intimacy and giving people access to the leaders of Jacksonville, to the leaders of industry, to all these different people that they want to know, and then repurpose that content one to many by taking that 1 hour, Zoom event, right? This internet talk show that we created, put it on YouTube, put it on podcast, create all the bite-sized pieces, and just show up over and over again, that we could drive this sense of community. And what ended up happening is, and now that we look back at it 2 years later, right? Number one, their sales channel grew immensely, right? Like that's where we come up with this $46 million number, because that was the increase in client acquired leads. But the really big aha moment happened a couple of weeks ago, when what we realized is nowadays, because we've done this, right? Coronavirus hit, and all of a sudden it's like March 2020, people are freaking out what they're going to do with their money. Boom, they have a press conference. Like you're able to come talk and find out and be genuine, right? And like connections are built through two things: vulnerability and value, right? Like if I can add value to your life, you're going to connect with me. And if I can show my vulnerability and you echo that vulnerability, we're going to connect, right? So like, as long as you're showing up in a genuine fashion and adding value to people's lives, that happens, and you do it over and over again, and you're distributing this content of you doing this and people see it over and over, then you create this like nucleus at the middle that comes in. But what really hit us is that while we're doing this show weekly and we get somewhere between like 40 to 100 people that show up every single week, it's 30 people that show up every single call, right? There's these 30 people that the moment that you show up, the chat is just going nuts. It's like a country club chat room. Like
sounds to me like, just to connect the dots here, sounds to me back to what we're saying, right?
Yeah.
You build a strong community, you provide value and impact, and you amplify through the channels, right? Is that?
Yeah. So we're amplifying it through content repurpose, but what's really driving the value is these 30 folks that show up every single week and provide that validation. And these people are like now hosting their own events in like Northern California and in Atlanta and all these places that the company hasn't had to do. So to me, the reason why we generated this revenue is not because we have a podcast that has thousands of downloads, is because we brought 30 people tightly knit together that then become these nodes of influence elsewhere.
Right. So, and this is go back to what we're having this conversation. Think about it, right? Acceleration networking. If you build strong network of strong nodes, right, with strong people who are super connectors, this is how you can go exponential, right? Repeatable, based it around the interests of your community, right? So we have time for one question. I think this question is for Corry. How do you know when you arrive at the social influencer status, Corry?
Oh, I think that's really arbitrary. And you can Google and people will tell you at 30,000, you're a micro influencer, and a 250,000, depending on the channel, 1 million, you're an influencer. And I'm a partner and co-founder at Influencer Active with Anthony James and some other partners. And initially when we launched, we were saying that 30,000 was what we were looking for people to have in a following. I'm concentrated on one platform to kind of, pass our sniff test of influence. But at this point, I think what I'm really starting to realize is there are people that quite literally have millions of followers on social media that I don't think have any influence. And there are people that have very small followings that have a great deal of influence. And, you know, I'm very late to this party, but I'm down here in Brazil, and one of the things we're doing when it's too hot to leave the house is watching Game of Thrones. I'm watching all the like kingmakers and stuff in that show, and you know, just understanding, you know, what really goes on when you know, people are looking at building, you know, dynasties, empires, building true, you know, scopes of and realms of influence. And so for me, I mean, people were calling me an influencer on LinkedIn when I had, you know, 10, 20,000 followers, because I got them overnight and my posts were going viral. But I think for me, it's less about like numbers and vanity metrics and more, you know, if you're actually impacting, you know, geographic location or demographic or an industry. You know, and I think, you know, when you're doing it, you know when people are reaching out to you, thanking you for, you know, doing a webinar, putting a piece of content out that benefited their company or their revenue, bottom line, whatever it might be. So I don't know, that might have been a little bit conflated. But
I hear what you're saying. To me, I think the word influencer is going to change in going forward, right? To me, influence means how do you influence someone, use your influence to impact someone's life, right? Not followers, right? It's almost like, how do you make an impact, whether you inspire someone or you change their life, right? Go ahead, Corey.
So I'm big on etymology, and I, you know, I'm learning a number of languages, but it's interesting. I studied the word influencer, and it simply means to be in flow. So the fluent and influencer is flow.
I love
and you know, it can also be thought of like fluidity, you know, being fluid and, you know, liquid, all these things. But so an influencer truly is just someone that's in flow. And, you know, if you're in flow, the more eyeballs and earballs you have on whatever you're flowing, you know, and Pablo and I like to flow. We'll be sharing something with the world soon as well. But it's it really is kind of a, you know, it's a perception, but it's also just a state of being.
Yeah, I love that. Well, on that note, let's all go into flow state, right? So now we're going to go into networking. So thank you so much, Corey. Thank you, Pablo. Thank you, Kirsten. We're going to go to our next segment. I'm going to just turn off the broadcast here for a second.